Maurice, tell us first about some of the main findings and the recommendations of the report on Dublin.
Okay, well, I think that the highlights would be that Dublin has lost share, which I think is a key issue, in a market where there is currently strong growth and probably likely to be considerable growth, particularly in the short-term break area going forward. Dublin as a city lacks a brand focus, it lacks clarity, it doesn't have standout, if you like, a USP, as other peer cities that we looked at in the report do. We found that there was sufficient funds being spent on the marketing of the city, circa 15 million euro. So that's a considerable investment, which is good. But we equally found that there wasn't great focus around that spend, a lack of understanding about when it was being spent and where it was being spent, which obviously dissipates some of the value from it. And I think the other major finding was that post the demise of Dublin Tourism, or if you like its integration into Fáilte Ireland, there was a concern, and there's an ongoing concern in the industry, that Dublin will lose further focus and therefore potentially lose share in a market where there clearly is opportunity for it. So I would say they're the main findings, and given that they were, a lot of the actions and the recommendations in the report follow on from that.
Sure. And you've set some pretty ambitious targets for Dublin over the next few years. Can you tell us a little about them, and do you think they're realistic?
Well, I think targets are very important in business. You need to give people a goal to aim for, and you want everybody to be on the same page and understand that there are targets. Secondly, they do need to be realistic, and what the report did was examine, if you like, a flat trend view, which, if that occurred, would deliver about 3.2% of an increase in tourism between now and 2020. And then it looked at the possibilities of outperforming that figure and what conditions would need to exist to do so. When you look at the growth of city breaks in particular, and you look at Dublin's sort of location and air access and sea access and so on, there's no doubt that it has the capacity and the capability to deliver above trend growth, but only if a number of the actions which are recommended in the report, particularly in relation to the marketing and the branding of the city, are taken on board.
Sure. And you talked earlier, and indeed the report goes into some depth about the necessity of developing a brand for the city and the region. Tell us why that is so important and such a critical aspect of attaining the 6.2% growth target.
Well, I think, again, just to use real-time examples, which the report does go into at some length, when you look at comparator cities, and the two that really stood out to me were Copenhagen and Amsterdam, where they clearly have developed a long-term brand strategy, in the case of Copenhagen around the use of the word open and the openness of the city, and developed that in their positioning, and in the case of Amsterdam, High Amsterdam, and in both locations they have broadened the focus of tourism beyond just the immediate city boundary and into the outer regions, which is another key finding, another key learning, and again a great opportunity for Dublin to capitalise on. So that's one piece of it. The second piece is that if you invest 15 million, for instance, as Dublin does, if that was all done under a uniform brand, then its value would be far greater.
Sure.
And equally, you get far more people who are, if you like, on the periphery of tourism, including many businesses, who could be encouraged to use that brand. So you develop equity over time, and that has a great value. I mean, Ireland has a great brand equity as a holiday destination, Brand Ireland, Tourism Ireland, and so forth. Dublin needs to have something similar.
Oh, that's very clear. The report suggests that to deliver on this, that we should look at the creation of a destination marketing alliance, which would be sited within the existing board Fáilte Ireland structure. Tell us how you see that functioning, and how would it be different from the former Dublin Tourism?
Okay, well, I think again, and this was the usefulness of doing a pretty comprehensive report using an independent research agency, because when we benchmarked the models, what we found was that in most other comparator cities there is a public-private relationship going on. Now, there was nothing that you could actually say that's absolutely perfect, we'll take that one, but there were great examples of collaboration, both in terms of funding and in terms of committees and activities and events and coordination. So what emerged really as a key recommendation was that there's sort of a pro forma model there under the business tourism group, and given Fáilte Ireland now has the remit from the state in terms of tourism for Dublin, what emerged as a key recommendation was that the industry stakeholders should form an alliance which involved all the stakeholders and in the Greater Dublin region. Amongst whom obviously key players would be Fáilte Ireland and Tourism Ireland. Within that, Fáilte Tourism, and in particular Fáilte Ireland, would have the responsibility to execute on the branding and the marketing plans for the city and the greater region, and that all of the other stakeholders would be involved in effectively a steering group.
Yes.
That what would be created would be a service level agreement which would clearly give the remit and the responsibility and the accountability for the spend and the investment to the state agencies, but it would greatly encourage the private sector to get more involved and to support that existing investment and get more involved in the activity and broaden it beyond tourism and into business and into people who live and work in the city. So that's it in a nutshell.
Terrific. Sounds good. And finally, from which markets do you think the greatest potential lies in the short to medium term?
Well, I think in the report it's pretty clear that the short break market is the greatest opportunity. We also recognise that we will have to be over-reliant on, if you like, importing growth, because the domestic market will take quite a while to recover. Within that, we think continental Europe can provide more than a third of the growth, followed by Britain, which is of course our current most important market, but is in some difficulty. And it's very important to seed new market growth and look to the longer term at where our customers, our tourist customers and visitors should come from. So they be the main two markets, and then obviously over time looking to see more investment in some of the newer markets with some of the outreach that's going on with other state agencies as well, but primarily continental Europe and GB.
Sure. Well, thank you for that, Maurice, and thanks for chairing the steering group, and we look forward now to the next stage, which is getting these recommendations implemented.
I think that's the key. I mean, this report is only of any use and value if in fact the key recommendations within it are taken on. That doesn't mean they have to be followed slavishly, but what it does mean is that the industry, who are clearly prepared to be involved and are enthusiastic about this, actually take this up and actually translate this into a plan that's actionable and that's effective in the marketplace in 2013.
Absolutely. Thank you, Maurice.